Hello guys, welcome to my channel Science to Scientist. Today we are going to start a new chapter, that is tissues. Let's begin this. Living organism in this world comprises of cells. There are unicellular as well as multicellular organisms present in this world. In unicellular organisms, the only single cell is capable of performing several functions such as respiration, digestion and clearing of the cell. In multicellular organisms, there is a division of labor. There are different types as well as groups of cells that perform different functions in a multicellular organism. For example, in animals, muscle cells are responsible for causing movement. Nerve cells are responsible for carrying message and signals from one part of the body to another, and blood is responsible for transportation of food and oxygen to different parts of the body. In plants, there are vascular tissues that are responsible for carrying food and water to different parts of plant. Now the formation of tissues. Cells from group, cells that need to perform a single task often group together. This grouping of cells together to perform a function efficiently is called a tissue. For example, muscles and blood. The tissues cells have the same structure and they perform the same function.
Talking about tissues of plants and animals, plant tissues do not move, so their tissues are predominantly the ones that provide support to them so that they can stand erect. Whereas animal tissues, animal needs more energy as compared to plants because they are not stationary. Their tissues are the ones that can support movement. Plant tissues, these tissues are made up of dead cells because dead cells can also provide mechanical strength to the plants and do not require much maintenance. Whereas in animal tissues, the tissues in case of animals are made up of living cells so that they can move and perform several functions. Plant tissues, only certain parts of the plant can grow. The tissue present in such regions of and divide themselves and form new tissues. Whereas in animal tissues, cells in organism grow uniform early and not only in certain regions of the body. The structure of plant tissue is not very specialized as compared to animals. Whereas in animal tissue, the organs and organ system is animals are highly developed. Now let us see the different types of plant tissue, that is meristematic tissue that divides throughout life and permanent tissue that lost ability to divide further. Meristematic tissues are divided into three types, that is apical meristem, lateral meristem and intercalary meristem. Whereas in permanent tissue, it lost the ability to divide further. It is of two types, that is simple tissue and complex tissue. Simple tissue comprises of parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma, whereas complex tissue comprises of xylem and phloem.
Talking about meristematic tissue, only certain parts of a plant tend to grow. The tissues located in such parts are called meristematic tissues. Meristematic tissues are seen in plants. They are primarily made up of rapidly dividing cells. They have the capability to divide themselves and form new tissues. They have thin cell wall made of cellulose, also have dense nucleus and cytoplasm but lack of vacuoles. They can further be classified differently based on the areas of plant where they are located, that is.
So here it is divided into apical, lateral and intercalary. We can see the apical meristem is at the top, intercalary meristem in the middle and lateral meristem in the bottom. Now let us see difference between apical, lateral and intercalary meristem. Apical meristem, they are responsible for the growth of stems and roots in the plants, and they are found on the tips of roots and stems. Whereas lateral meristem, they are responsible for increasing the circumference of the middle part of the stem and hence are found there. And intercalary meristem, these tissues are present at internodes or stem regions between the places at which leaves attach.
Now, why there are no vacuoles in the intercellular matter? Vacuoles are responsible for storage of food in water. The intercellular tissues do not store them. They are rather responsible for manufacturing them. Moreover, vacuoles contain sap, which provides rigidity to a cell. The property of vacuoles may not allow the intercellular tissue to divide and manufacture new cells. Hence, vacuoles are not present in them. Talking about permanent tissues, the cells that are formed by the meristematic tissue often have to take a certain role in the part, and thus they lose their ability to divide and form more cells. They then become the permanent tissues of the plants. Now, differentiation. The process by which cells of the meristematic tissue convert themselves into a permanent tissue by taking a fixed shape, size and function is called differentiation. Now, types of permanent tissue. There are two types, that is simple permanent tissue and complex permanent tissue. Simple permanent tissues are of 5 types, that is parenchyma, chlorenchyma, erenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma.
These are the figures of simple permanent tissue, that is parenchyma tissue, in which there are intercellular spaces, collenchyma tissues having cell walls, and sclerenchyma having fibers, that is lumen, stone cell and cell walls with lignin. Lignin is a chemical substance which acts as cement and hardens them. Now let us see about parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma. Parenchyma, these tissues are responsible for photosynthesis, storage of food, gaseous exchange and floating of plants. They are a group of living cells with cell wall made of cellulose, whereas the parenchyma cells have large intercellular spaces between them. There are thin walls that surround each cell. They are found in leaves and newly formed branches. Whereas collenchyma, these tissues are responsible for providing flexibility to the plants so that they can bend easily. They are a group of living cells with cell wall made of cellulose and pectin. They have a little intercellular space in between them. The cells present in these tissues are broad and irregularly thick at corners. They are present in leaves and stems of a plant. Whereas sclerenchyma, these tissues are responsible for making plants hard and rigid. They are made up of dead cells having cell wall made of lignin. The cells do not have any intercellular spaces. The cells have long structure with thick walls. They are formed in stems, veins of the leaves and covering of nuts and seeds.
So now let's talk about the 4 types of simple permanent tissue, that is chlorenchyma. These tissues are similar to that of parenchyma, but they also contain chlorophyll in them. Due to the presence of chlorophyll, they are capable of performing the process of photosynthesis in plants. Discussing about the 5th type, that is erenchyma, they are found in aquatic plants. They are also similar in the structure of that of the parenchyma, but they have large air cavities in them. These cavities allow the aquatic plant to float in water. Now, what is lignin? The cells wall of dead cells have a substance called lignin in them which provides rigidity to the cells. Lignin acts as the cement for the cell. Discussing about epidermis, the outermost layer of the cell is known as epidermis. It covers the entire plant. It is a thin layer of single cell but in place with less water. The epidermis of the plant can become thick in order to avoid frequent water loss. The cells are flat and they have no intercellular space between them. The outer walls of the epidermal cells are thick and the inner walls are thin. The epidermal cells often have long hair-like structure and rods which facilitate the absorption of water. The main function of the epidermis is to protect the plant from fungi, water loss and any injury by secretes a wax layer water-resistant substance called as cuticle on the surface of the plants, which protects the plant.
This is a figure of epidermis. In this we have upper epidermis, mesophyll, lower epidermis, cuticle, placid parenchyma, spongy parenchyma, cuticle and guard cells. Here we have stoma for the exchange, which is useful for the exchanges of gases, that is CO2 and O2.
Talking about stomata. Stomata are pore-like structures that are present in the epidermis of a leaf. These pores are enclosed by two cells that have similar shape as a kidney. They are called guard cells of stomata. Guard cells are modified epidermal cells. Guard cells are responsible for the exchange of gases and transpiration. So now let us talk about transpiration. Transpiration, the plant cells, when sometimes have extra oxygen or gases, they lose it in the form of water, evaporates through stomata. This process is called transpiration. Now, role of transpiration in plants: exchange of gases, prevent the plants from overheating, transportation of food and water in plants, and movement of water in plants. So now let us know in detail. Exchange of gases. The plants absorb carbon dioxide and release oxygen through transpiration. Second, preventing of plants from overheating. The leaves absorb sunlight during the process of photosynthesis. Some of it is used in the photosynthesis process, while the rest is radiated as heat energy. We know that the absorption of water causes cooling of the surrounding area. Therefore, transpiration keeps the leaves cool. Now third, transportation of food and water in plants. The roots of the plants absorb minerals and water present in the soil through transpiration, and they are then disturbed in the plant through transpiration stream. Now fourth, movement of water in plants. As plants lose water in the form of water vapors, the density of water in leaves becomes low. So the water from the higher density areas such as the roots move up to lower density areas through a force called transpirational pull. Now, which gases is necessary for the process of photosynthesis? The carbon dioxide gas is necessary in the process of photosynthesis. Plants use carbon dioxide along with water and sunlight to produce glucose in the process of photosynthesis. Plants take in carbon dioxide and releases oxygen as the byproduct of the photosynthesis process. Now, why do plants in desert areas have waxy coating of cutin over them? The epidermis cell of plants that are found in deserts have a waxy coating of cutin over them because it prevents water loss from the plant surface, since water is already scarce in such areas. Now another question is, why do branches of old trees are different than the stems of a new plant? As a plant grows older, the meristematic cell starts covering the upper layer of the plant instead of epidermis. These are the dead cells that have no special function in the plant, but they provide them rigidity. They make the branches of the plants thick. This is often called a bark or the thick cork of the tree. The bark of the tree contains a substance called suberin, which makes it waterproof and does not allow gaseous exchange. Now let us discuss about the second type, that is complex permanent tissue of a plant tissue. Complex permanent tissue comprises of different kinds of cells. These different types of cells coordinate with each other and perform a common function in these tissues. Two complex permanent tissues are xylem and phloem.
This is the figure of xylem and phloem. In this we can see perforation plates, tracheides, fiber and vessel membranes. Whereas in phloem we can see sieve plate, companion cells, sieve areas, sieve elements and fibers.
Now let us discuss about the similarities between xylem and phloem. Their main function is to carry food and water in the plant. Both have a vascular bundle, which is conductive tissue in plants that helps them survive in different environmental conditions. Knowing more about xylem, Xylem is made up of dead cells having a thick cell lining. It consists of following elements, that is tracheides and vessels, and xylem parenchyma or xylem fibers. So let us know about tracheides and vesicles. They have broad tabular structure so that we can allow transportation of food and water in the plants vertically. Second, xylem parenchyma, it stores food and help in transportation of water horizontally in the plant. And third, that is xylem fibers, they support transportation. Knowing more about phloem, phloem is made up of living cells and it allows the movement of food from leaves to other parts of the plant. It has the following elements, that is sieve tubes, companion cells, phloem fibers and phloem parenchyma. Knowing more about sieve tubes, that are broad-shaped cells with porous walls. Companion cells, they facilitate the function of these sieve tubes. Phloem fibers provides flexibility to the phloem, and phloem parenchyma stores starch and proteins.
Now let us see the properties of xylem and phloems. Xylem is made up of dead cells, whereas phloem is made up of living cells. Xylem cell wall thickness is very thick and phloem is thin. Cell wall material of xylem is lignin, that is rigid, and phloem is cellulose. Permeability of xylem is impermeable and phloem is permeable. Cytoplasm present in xylem is none, and in phloem its cytoplasm lining. Xylem transports waters and minerals and phloem transports foods. Xylem carried to leaves and phloem carries growing parts and storage organs. Whereas direction of flow in xylem is upwards and direction of flow in phloem is up and down, that is unidirectional. Whereas tissues also has fibers in xylem and tissue also has companion cells in phloem. Now let us see the difference of animal tissue. Animal tissues are divided into 4 types, that is the nervous tissue, the connective tissue, muscular tissue and epithelial tissue. Epithelial tissue is for the protection by covering. It is of 5 types, that is squamous, that is flattened, cuboidal, that is cubical, columnar, that is pillar-like, ciliated and glandular, that is secretory. Moving to muscular tissue, that is movement plus locomotion. It is of 3 types, that is striated, non-striated and cardiac. Connective tissue means binding, support and transport. It is of 5 types, that is areolar, supporting. Supporting is of 2 types, that is tendon and ligament. Whereas another type is adipose, skeletal. Skeletal is further divided into 2 types, that is cartilage and bone. Fluid is further divided into blood and lymph. Moving to the 4th type of animal tissue, it is nervous tissue, that is control plus coordination.
Talking about epithelial tissue, they are the protective tissue of the human body. They cover many organs and cavities that are present inside the body. Now question arises, where are the epithelial tissues found in the human body? The lining of the blood vessels, the lining of the mouth, kidney tubules, skin, lung alveoli, and many more. The structures and function of epithelial tissues are the main function of the epithelial tissue is to act as a barrier and separate different organs and systems from each other. There is no space between the cells of epithelial tissues. The cells are permeable. This makes it possible for them to exchange materials between different parts of the body and also between the body and the external environment. The epithelial tissue remains separated from the tissue beneath them because of a thin membrane over them.
So here we can see the types of epithelium, that is simple squamous, simple cuboidal, simple columnar, transitional, pseudo-trasified columnar, stratified cuboidal and stratified squamous. These are the types of epithelium. Now we will be seeing the different types of epithelium tissues, their structures in which they are found in. In this, we will be discussing about the simple squamous, stratified squamous, columnar, ciliated columnar, cuboidal and glandular. The structure, first they have delicate cell lining and possess flat thin structure. Stratified squamous, the epithelium squamous cells are arranged in several layers. Columnar, they are the column-like shaped tissues. Ciliated columnar, epithelial tissues which have chela present on them. Cuboidal, they are cube-shaped cells which are involved in absorption and secretion. Whereas glandular, these are special gland cells that can secrete substance. Now, these are found in alveoli and Bowman's capsule nephron in kidney, stratified squamous in skin, columnar in intestine, ciliated columnar in respiratory system, cuboidal in kidney tubules, and glandular in sweat glands in the skin.
Knowing more about second type of animal tissue, that is connective tissue. Structure and function of connective tissue. They are loosely bound cells present in an intercellular matrix. This matrix can be of different types, that is dense, rigid, fluid or jelly-like. Depending upon the functionality of the connective tissue, the nature of matrix varies in them. Now, example of connective tissues.
Here we will be seeing about the connective tissue. In this, A, that is loose connective tissue, B, adipose tissue, C, blood, D, fibrous connective tissue, E, cartilage and F, bone. Here the loose connective tissue, that is represented at A, is present under the skin and it comprises of cell, collagen fiber and others fiber. Whereas B, that is adipose tissue, has fat droplets and cell nucleus. Blood have white blood cells, red blood cells, plasma and many things. Whereas D, that is fibrous connective tissue, is forming a ligament, that is having cell nucleus, collagen fibers and many more. E, that is cartilage at the end of the bone, that is made up of cells and matrix. Whereas F, that is bone, has central canal, matrix and cells.
Knowing about blood. The main function of the blood is to transport gases, foods, waste materials and hormones in the body. Therefore, blood has a fluid matrix present in it which is called plasma. The plasma contains the red blood cells, the white blood cells and blood platelets. The RBC have hemoglobin pigment which carries oxygen to the tissues. White blood cells fight diseases and platelets are involved in clotting of blood when injured. The plasma also contains proteins and hormones in it. Knowing about lymph. Lymph is a colorless fluid that carries white blood cells throughout the human body in lymphatic vessels. There are lymphoid organs present in the body that produce lymph and together form the lymphatic system. Some of them are lymph nodes and tonsils.
So now let's see the lymph capillaries in the tissue spaces. Here we can see the lymph capillary, tissue shells, tissue spaces, venule, lymphatic vessel, tissue fluid and erythroryl. So this is the figure of lymph capillaries.
Lymph is similar to the blood except for few differences. It contains only white blood cells. It contains less amount of blood proteins, calcium and phosphorus but more glucose. It flows in only one direction. Lymph moves in the body through its normal function unlike blood which is pumped by the heart. Now, constituents of lymph. Lymph is of two types, that is lymph plasma and lymph corpuscles. Lymph plasma carries infection-fighting proteins along with other substances such as water, calcium and phosphorus. Whereas lymph corpuscles comprises white blood cells. Red blood cells and platelets are not present in lymph. Now, function of lymph. It carries oxygen and minerals to the cells in the body and carries back carbon dioxide and waste materials back into the blood. It keeps the body cells moist. It maintains the volume of the blood. It helps in eliminating harmful bacteria and virus from the body and hence is responsible for the immunity of human being. It absorbs fats from the intestine and transports them throughout the body. The next type of human tissue is bones. Bones form a framework of the body over which the muscles are wrapped together. The bone tissue is strong and inflexible in nature. Therefore, the bone cells are present in a rigid matrix which is formed from calcium and phosphorus. Knowing about Haversian canals. The bones comprises of microscopic tubes called Haversian canals. They are contained in osteons, rough cylindrical structures present along the axis of the bone. They allow the blood vessels, lymphatic vessels and nerve fiber of traveling through them.
Here we can see the figure of Haversian canal having canculi, osteocyte, Haversian canal, ostone, and you can see the figure of Haversian canal in zoomed view.
These canals have concentric channels called lamellae around them. The Haversian canals communicate with bone cells through connections called caniculi. Here, whatever we have discussed about Haversian canals are mainly coming in Olympiads. Now knowing about cartilage, that is the third type of animal tissue. Cartilage is present over the joints of the bones and provides them with a smooth structure. For example, in the nose tip and the ear pinna, trachea and larynx. They contain solid matrix made of protein and sugar. They have homogeneous matrix. It provides support and flexibility to various parts of our body. Knowing the fourth type, that is ligaments, a ligament connects two bones together. It has an elasticity which facilitates the connection. The cells of ligaments have a little matrix. Knowing about tendons, the tendons tissues are responsible for connecting bones and muscles together. They have limited flexibility but very great strength. Knowing about areolar, the tissues act as a filter in between the spaces present inside the organ of the body. It helps in repairing other tissues as well. It is found in the skin and bone marrow. Now the components of areolar connective tissues.
This is the figure of components of the areolar connective tissue. In this we can see the cell types, that is macrophage, fibroblast, lymphocyte, fat cell, mast cell, neutrophil, capillaries, ground substance fibers, that is colon fiber, elastic fiber and reticular fiber. These are all extracellular matrix.
Knowing about adipose. Fats are stored in our body in the adipose tissue. They are found below the skin and between the organs of the body. Provides cushioning of the organs. Knowing about muscular tissue, it is made up of muscle fibers which are long cells. It allows movements in our body. Now how muscles can cause movements? They contain special proteins called contractile proteins. These proteins cause contraction and relaxation of the muscles. There are two kinds of muscle found in our body, that is voluntary muscles and involuntary muscles.
Let us see about the muscular tissue. In this is the cardiac muscle tissue, that is involuntary control. Second is the bones, that is skeletal muscle tissue, that is voluntary control. And the third one is smooth muscle tissue, that is involuntary control. Moving to the straight skeletal or voluntary muscle, we can move them according to our own will. They are also called skeletal muscles as they are attached to the bones. They are also called striated muscle because of the presence of dark and light bands over them. The cells of voluntary muscles have more than one nucleus. They do not have any branches and have a long cylindrical structure. For example, muscles of our hands and legs. Whereas smooth, unstraightened, involuntary muscle, we cannot start or stop the movement of involuntary muscle. They also called smooth muscles. They are also called unstraightened muscles because they do not have any light or dark bands on them. The cells of the involuntary muscles are long and have pointed ends. For example, the muscles in the alimentary canals and the iris of our eyes.
Knowing about cardiac muscles, these are special kinds of involuntary muscle. The muscles of the heart are called cardiac muscles. They perform rhythmic contraction and relaxation throughout our life. They are cylindrical in shape and they have branches, and there is a single nucleus. Cardiac muscle consists of individual heart muscles, cells connected by intercalated disc to work as single function organ. Discussing about the nervous tissue, how do we react to stimuli? This is because of the nervous tissue present in our body. They are capable of transmitting information quickly from the brain to different parts of the body and vice versa. Therefore, nervous tissues are found in nerves, brains and spinal cord. The nervous tissue is made up of cells called the nerve cells and neurons. These neurons connect together to form nerves of our body. Knowing about structure of neuron, it is elongated cell with a cell body that consists of some branch-like structures called dendrites. There is a nucleus present in the center of the cell body. The nerve ending of the cell are connected with the cell body via axon. The nerve cell can be up to 1 meter long. Now let's see the neuron anatomy.
Here is the structure of a neuron. In this we can see the dendrite, nucleus, soma, Schwann cells, node of Ranvier, myelin, axon terminal and axon. So this is an neuron anatomy.
Knowing about the structure of neuron, first dendrites. They are tree-like extensions, that is highly branched at the beginning of a neuron. They increases the surface area of the neuron. They receive chemical signals from different neurons of the body. They then convert them chemicals into electrical signals and pass them to the neuron cell body. A neuron cell have a single dendrite or multiple dendrites. Knowing about the cell body, also called soma, the main function of the cell body and nucleus of the neuron is to maintain the functionality of the cells. It does not play an active role in the transmission of the signal. It produces proteins that are required by different parts of the neuron to work properly. It contains different cell organelles such as mitochondria, Golgi apparatus, etc. that perform various functions of the cell. Knowing about axon, neurons have one axon in general. It is long structure that connects the cell body of the terminals and also connects with other neurons, cells and organs of the body through nerve terminals. It allows in fast transmission of signals. The larger the diameter of the axon, the faster it will transmit signals. It is covered with a special insulating substance called myelin. It helps in rapid transmissions of signals. Knowing about Schwann cells, the myelin sheath that covers the axon is produced by Schwann cells. The myelin sheath keeps this signal intact. By this, we have completed our today's chapter, that is tissue. If you have any doubt, please just ask me or just mail on my email. If you like this video, please don't forget to like it, subscribe it and press the bell icon to get regular updates. Thank you.